I asked over 500,000 residents here in the greater Phoenix area that have moved here over the last decade, what are some of the weirdest and craziest things about living in Phoenix that you weren't expecting? So many people said they were completely shocked how hot it was. Like, what rock have you been living under? Look, I have a ton of idiosyncrasies, did I say that word right, about living in Phoenix that I'll bet you have never seen, because I'm telling you, even some of these like items, these weirdnesses have completely blown me away. Let's talk about what are some of the craziest and the weirdest things about living in Phoenix. And we're going to start with our grid system. So someone told us that they thought when someone asked, what's your cross streets? They were like, cross streets? What does that mean? It means when you have an interjection of a north-south road and an east-west road. What is the intersection? What is the cross streets? We here in the greater Phoenix area are on a grid system. Very quickly, you can identify the person that you met out, whether it's out shopping or maybe you're out doing some kind of an event, and you finally meet the love of your life and you find out they live on the other side of town. That you're not going to be visiting them very often. Another thing people were surprised about was all the rock front yards. You're expecting something different. Rock is very normal in the greater Phoenix area. What do I mean by rock? I mean granite. And depending on the kind of granite that they have in the front yard will dictate how old of a neighborhood it is. If you go back to like the 90s, it's this little tiny ugly pink rock. And then as it kind of went through the 2000s, we started to see some much bigger, darker chunks of granite. And honestly, that's still my favorite. But what you're seeing in today's world, you're starting to see back to pavers and even colored rocks. We're seeing gray rock, we're seeing white rock, we're seeing black rock. Needless to say, we have a lot of rocks here. And here's the thing. When you have a landscaper, they rake your rocks for you. One of the followers said there's minimal shade in the greater Phoenix area. And you know what? I felt like there's a lot of shade here until I really started looking at some of the other videos throughout the country. And you know what? You're right. We don't have a lot of shade here. And our natural trees that are here, now, mind you, there are some communities that have grown different types of trees to provide that shade. But for the most part, throughout the greater Phoenix area, you don't find shade trees. And the trees that we do have are kind of ugly. And that leads me to the next thing. Everything we have here that grows has thorns, right? Be aware of that. As fuzzy or bushy as something might look, it has thorns. So just be prepared. Don't touch. One thing that kept coming up a ton of time, like there's so many traffic differences. Depending on where you come from, yeah, Arizona's kind of the wild, wild west. We have some crazy drivers. Let me just say that. Number one, we can legally make a U-turn at a red light. How does that work? If you don't time it correctly and you don't go out into the middle of the cross traffic, it seems to be a recipe for disaster. But you know what? It's legal and there's not a lot of accidents about it. So it's still on our books. Did you know you can also change lanes in the middle of an intersection? One of the things that has always surprised me is we still don't have a helmet law in the greater Phoenix area, actually in Arizona. So for motorcycle riders, and I know many of you absolutely love that free wind in your hair, but you know what? It is dangerous, and I'm not your mother, so I should just keep my mouth shut and move on. Okay, let's talk about housing a little bit, right? Housing is very different in the greater Phoenix area, very different. Even then let's talk about where I'm talking about in the greater Phoenix area. Sometimes I say Arizona, and I really do mean just Phoenix, but sometimes I really do mean Arizona, like the helmet law, that's an Arizona thing. But when I'm talking about like heat, or in this case about housing, I'm talking about, the hot part of Phoenix, not this part of Arizona. It's different in Arizona. You can have mountain homes on a lake with big, beautiful pine trees. That's not Phoenix. You can have beautiful red rock. Let me tell you, I was just up in Sedona and I was cracking up. That's another thing. Winter coats. I'll get back to that. Needless to say, Phoenix homes are built completely different than the rest of the country. Now, if we go to some of the older homes built in like the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, yeah, you're going to see that traditional ranch property, bungalow, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, ones with stoops, brick built by brick. And there are some homes that have a basement, but the newer homes today, which are very energy efficient for our heat, are built very differently. They're built on post-tension slabs. They also have very high rated energy efficiency, from windows to air conditioning units, insulation in the ceilings as well as in your walls. We also have weird things inside the home. Like, for instance, we build homes with textured walls. You're like, what? Why? Well, you know what they say? They say the reason is kind of twofold. Number one, our workmanship here is subpar. So if there's a small little imperfection, you can't really see it with textured walls. Also, we have very expansive soil. So although our post-tension slab keeps the house as tight as possible, there is some movement, and so there is some smaller cracks. And when you have textured walls on the inside and stucco walls on the outside, you can't see the hairline cracks as much as you could if it was a flat surface. If you get to the really high-end real estate, you're starting to see that beautiful flat walls. Beware, they are very expensive because it requires protection. Here's some other weird things about our homes. Number one, we have big cylinder block fences around our home. Now, it's weird for just about anybody. If you're moving from California, you're used to having like thinner, very beautiful wood fences. Well, we don't have wood fences here because they would only last like 1 year, maybe 2 years. I'm telling you, nothing lasts in our sun. In fact, if you have your home painted, within 1 year, the paint color is already changed. Now, is it visibly different? No, but if you do a spot fix, you're going to see it. Also, here's something on the inside. Archways are still very prevalent in the Phoenix architecture. In the more modern homes, we're definitely seeing the straight lines, but here's what's really weird. Going into the master bathroom, there is never a door that separates the master bedroom to the master bathroom. I do not know why they do this. It is weird, I have to tell you. And a lot of people are now starting to do, not starting because it's been going on for a really long time, but now that the barn doors, you can either do something rustic or you could do something farmhouse, or you could do something really modern like that whole IKEA, smoked glass kind of thing. They're doing those slide doors. That's kind of a newer thing. And some builders are offering that as an upgrade, but that's the weirdest thing, that we don't have a door that separates the bathroom from the bedroom. I'm used to having its own little toilet room. It's called a water closet. So while you're getting ready, and your significant other is doing their duty.
Duty?
Not that kind of duty.
They can shut their door for some privacy and you can still get ready in the bathroom. Apparently that's not norm in the rest of the country. I don't know. It seemed like a good thing. And so I've never really thought of it as a weird thing until I did this poll. One of the things I've had to even get used to is no cold water year round. I know this sounds weird. In the wintertime, yeah, you're brushing your teeth and it's just fine. Let me tell you, come summertime, you never have cold water coming out of that tap. Now, again, if you live in a different part of Arizona, that's not the case. In the Phoenix area, yeah, you brush your teeth with warm water for about 6 months out of the year. And apparently it's weird for people to see it raining when it's 100 degrees outside. That kind of seems normal. And here's the thing. When it rains here, we're all doing our amazing rain dances and we're celebrating. Let me tell you, the pups are running through the water. The neighbors will get their canoes out or their floaties, depending on the temperature out there. And the kids are literally paddling down whatever lake is at the end of the street. See, here's the thing. We do have a lot of parks, or if you want to call them green belts. And here's the thing. There's a dual purpose for the green belts. They are there to gather the heavy rainstorms that we get on the average only 9 days a year. Do you guys realize that? Like, we don't get a lot of rain in the greater Phoenix area, but when we do get it, it comes down massively hard. It's like a fire hose. And so all the homes that are relatively like within the last 30 to 40 years when they've been building out here, they've built all the homes on a gradient. And so the back of the home where it takes on water will come to the sides of the house, and the water will come out to the front yard. People don't realize when they buy new construction, they need to put the proper type of landscaping in that will continue that drainage, because you don't want the water pooling up on your house, right? No. And then as that water goes to the front of the street, it then goes down to the end of the street into one of two places. It either goes into the sewer or it goes off into those retention areas, as we call them, that are those green belts. And so although they're beautiful grass some of the time, and the other time they become, like I said, the little neighborhood lake. And the thing is our ground soaks that water up like that. It doesn't stay long at all, but it's kind of fun for the kids and the pets. I'm not going to lie. Weather is the number one thing that people in some way are surprised about how hot it is here. But here's the thing. I don't think it's that hot, but that's also because I've lived here for almost 30 years. So that's why I did this poll. So June, you're enjoying the heat. Like you're thinking kids are getting out of school and you got 4th of July coming up and everybody's loving their pool. June is a hot month, but we love it. Then comes July and we're like, okay, I'm only going out after 10 p.m. Not kidding. You will eat dinner later. Everything will be later in the summer. People don't realize that. This is how we adjust. This is how we live in the summer. And so we go out later. We start eating later. Nobody eats like in the Midwest. When I have clients that move here and they invite us over for dinner, they're like, oh, how about 5 o'clock? I'm all, 5 o'clock? That's snack time. That's happy hour time, okay? So you eat dinner closer to 7 or 8 o'clock because it's so darn hot. By August, it's humid here. And I know you're thinking it's never humid in Phoenix. It's, for us, it is, because the rest of the year it's like 10% humid, precipitation, 12%. When it gets to 30% humidity, we're dying out here.
I'm melting out of my dress.
I know that other parts of the country, that is a moderate winter day for you. You guys are used to an 80%, a 90%, and that is what makes the heat in those states truly miserable. I learned that my elbows sweat and also the behind my knees sweat by visiting other states. It doesn't happen here in Arizona. It's so dang dry. It's crazy. Like it's like opening an oven door when you go outside and your mascara like lumps together. It can be very hot, and that's in August. But then that's also when we get our rainstorms when it's 100 degrees. So it'll be 110 degrees, and then the rainstorm comes in for 2 hours and it drops to 80. Yeah, that's kind of weird. And September is kind of that. What's it going to be? Is it going to be a warm fall, or is it going to be a cool fall? Usually September, by the end of the month anyways, is moderate. And I'll tell you, it's kind of cool. As a parent, you get to walk around on Halloween with a sippy cup and a light sweater. It's totally fine versus children not being out to go trick-or-treating. And that's another thing. We celebrate Halloween on the 31st of October. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is. It was really weird for me when people started asking me, what day are we celebrating Halloween? What do you mean? What day are we celebrating Halloween? It's always one day in Arizona. And again, that's because we have very moderate weather. Oh, back to the weather. Here's the thing. When it's 70 degrees in November and December, people were complaining that's hot. How is that hot? Look, if you want to live in a cold country, you can go up north where in Parks, Arizona, it's going to be 9 degrees later this week. There are cold parts of Arizona. Phoenix area is just not one of them. You at 70 degrees, when you live here, you will be wearing a long sleeve shirt. But you're only wearing a long sleeve shirt. Jackets? When you move here, if you have 10, 20, 30 jackets, purge those puppies, pick out your favorite one or two. And you don't need the ones that are like sub-zero, 30-degree weather. So we wear what they call winter sweaters. And in the same time, we have summer sweaters. What's a summer sweater? A summer sweater is what every woman wears or has in her car. She has it at her office, or she just has it sitting and ready to grab. Let me tell you, I keep one in my truck at all times because even when it's 115 degrees outside, it's inevitable that you go to a restaurant and the restaurant has the AC so dang cold that you're freezing. Or if you're going to a grocery store and you're in the frozen section, you're freezing your butt off because again, it's 115 outside and they have it down to like 70 degrees in the house. Not in the house, in the grocery store. At home, what do we set our AC at? You're going to laugh. In the summertime, turn the temperature to 79 degrees. If it's 80, it's a little too hot for me. If it's 78, it gets a little cold. And now I'm wearing my sweater, my summer sweater in the house. Let me tell you, when I go over to my son's house, because I know men like, cooler homes. When I go over to his house, I have to ask his wife, can I borrow a sweater? And they keep it at like 76. It's too dang cold. Same thing in the wintertime here. Now it changes a little bit. So right now while I'm doing this, can you hear my winter voice? My winter voice. Yes, people do get sick here. In the wintertime, I have my house at 69 degrees and it's super comfortable. If I have it at 70 degrees, I don't know how you guys do it in that cold country, to be honest with you. I get it. It's freezing outside. So when you come in, you want to have that blast of heat. But oh my God, what does it do to your hair and your fingers and your hands and your lips and your skin? It's so dry. Arizona overall, depending on where you're coming from, we're pretty chill. We're laid back.
All I need are some tasty waves, cool buzz, and I'm fine.
If you are coming from California, if you're coming from like even LA, the kind of pretentious part of LA, if you're coming from the corporate, California, San Francisco area where you're still wearing, business attire, people don't wear that here. And let me tell you, it's even more drastic compared to the Northeast. If you're coming from New York or Washington or Virginia or Maryland, nobody dresses like that. Nobody wears a three-piece suit. Let me tell you, when I watched on Netflix Suits, I was just like admiring their beautiful clothes. Nobody dresses like that out here. Look, even men, when they go to corporate jobs here in the greater Phoenix area, are wearing something super casual. Women, same thing. Nylons, no one wears nylons out here. Period. Not in the winter, not in the summer, never. Realtors, if you see them over like Instagram and over the top, with their clothes, their little tiny itty bitty skirts and their super, super high heels and their black Range Rover, those are posers.
Keep it real, homies.
Those are people that are trying so hard to look like they are selling Sunset in Los Angeles. That's not how people dress here, even for multi-million-dollar clients. It is very laid back. I'm not going to say flip-flop because I would never wear flip-flops with a client, but I might have my Tory Burke sandals, open-toed, flip-flops on, right? It's just laid back. Men, Vans, shoes. Let me tell you, I think it's actually pretty sexy when they wear their leather Vans shoes. And they look, I don't know, that's just a thing here. And yeah, you can wear a button-down shirt, but they're not going to be the crisp white with the vest and the $10,000 suit. Not in Arizona. It's pretty chill. Back to the heat. A lot of people were saying they're having a really hard time with 100-degree nights in the summer. Well, here's the thing. 100 degrees in the sun and 100 degrees at night is totally different. I'm telling you, until you experience 100-degree night in Arizona in July in a swimming pool, you're going to learn how nice it can be. I get just the concept of it, though. It is hard to understand that you would be comfortable in 100 degrees. Some of the other things, some of the parents were telling me that they were actually surprised. They had never heard of what charter schools are. And I actually don't know what the history of how everything came together. When I first moved here myself, the reason I selected the area that I live in was very specific for the schools. And that is very consistent with the way a lot of families shop in the entire country. But Arizona at some point changed to what they call open enrollment, and they can put their kids in any school. But no longer was it just public schools. They started to offer what they call charter schools. And these charter schools are still free for the public. You just got to get your child registered because they're not boundary set. Like you're not automatically grandfathered into the charter school, so you have to register register your child. Some of them as much as 2 school years in advance, and they have amazing high ratings. They run their organization completely different, but they still get paid through taxes. They get paid through tax dollars based on a per student basis. Charter schools have a lot more freedom than what the state does with their money. And that's why many of the charter schools have higher ratings, have higher test scores, and just overall a much higher demand. But again, if you have school-age children and you're thinking of moving to the greater Phoenix area, definitely do your work, research on the schools, because this is not something that's familiar to you. Also, depending on where you live, one of the things I really noticed was a lot of regional stuff. I see a ton of lost dogs in the greater Phoenix area overall. I don't know what the reasoning for that is, but it just sickens me, I'll be honest with you, because I am a huge animal lover, more specifically dogs. And my dog, Levi, but just say hi to all our friends, say, we wish we could help more puppies because we wish we would have had some land. But there are a lot of puppies here. There are a lot of puppy, dog. There's a lot of dog stores you can go into, dog parks. But I hate the fact that we have a lot of loose dogs. I don't know why. I don't know. It just sucks. So here's some other strange things about our housing. And even I thought this was kind of weird. We have all our breaker panels on the side of the garage in the front yard. I just think that's weird. I do. I don't know why. I asked people that were like, yeah, that's weird. I'm like, well, I agree too, but wherever you're coming from, where do you have them in your house there? They said in the backyard, and then they also said in the garage. But here's the thing, the power company can't do anything then without you being at the house. So there's a part of me that likes the fact that it's available for them to access. And when you talk about, people coming in and playing a joke, I think that was the biggest concern of everybody. Like, what if somebody comes in and starts moving stuff around and clicking it up? I haven't heard of that ever happening. But I like the fact that I don't have to be inconvenienced and sit at my house for a 4 to 6 hour window, right? Same thing with the emergency water turnoff. Emergency water turnoff, or is it just water turnoff? I think it's just water turnoff. I think I added the word emergency there. Water turnoff is also in the front yard, usually right by your front door. Is that a good thing? I think so, because let me tell you, when I had a flood, all I had to do was run. I didn't have to figure out where it was coming from or what was going on or how to stop it. I ran to one place and I turned it off. That worked pretty good for me. Here's something I am still surprised about. Holy crap. Fireworks are legal in Maricopa County and Pinal County. And the cities have no laws or rules against it. And let me tell you, if you have a pup or a person that has PTSD, be aware that for New Year's, not just 4th of July, for New Year's, it is massive between the air quality the day after. There's so many fireworks and there are so many dogs that escape and go to the pound and don't get reclaimed. It's insane. It looks like Iraq with colorful fireworks. It is unbelievable. And every year it seems to get worse and worse and worse. And I'll be honest with you, I don't hear of anything the day after of hearing that people have blown off their hand or anything. But it is something to be aware of if you fit into that category of not wanting to be a part of it. That's why this girl went up to Sedona for the night. Several people were saying that before they moved to Arizona, they had a visualization of it being like Looney Tunes with the coyote and the roadrunner kind of running through. And it was just this that's what the desert looked like. And that they also thought roadrunners were really tall and they're just little birds that are like this big. They're not that big. And the coyotes, they're not friendly. In fact, they're ugly and mangy and you just want to stay away from them. But that is not what Arizona looks like. It's not. And those are just a few of the things that are weird and crazy about living in Phoenix. I'm telling you guys, it's just the tip of the iceberg. If you want to know more, you're going to have to chime into my next video that tells you even some of the crazier things that you probably never heard from anybody else. Well, you got to listen here and watch here.